And welcome everyone to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. Folks, you are listening to the Walkoff here live in studio. It's Thanksgiving weekend and we got a lot to be thankful for baseball season. I'm here. Well, why don't you guys introduce yourselves? I'm here with Sebastian and Anthony, but take it away, please, on how excited you are for this week.
I'm very excited for this week. We got a lot to talk about. I'm Anthony, junior sports comm major here at Montclair. And I'm ready to talk about a new trade we have, a new signing we have. And you go ahead, Sebastian.
What's going on, guys? I'm Sebastian Stratton. I'm a freshman here at Montclair, sports comm major. This is my third time on the Walkoff, and
we are so excited to have you back, Sebastian.
I appreciate it. I've had a great time here. This is awesome talking about baseball. And as Anthony said, there's some new news in the baseball circuit, so I'm looking forward to talking about it.
And guys, I mean, a little bit of a shortened show today due to some difficulties on my end. But I feel like the first thing we should talk about is Brady Singer and Jonathan India being swapped. There's a lot of awards to go over that I think are more obvious than not, except for the Rookie of the Year in the NL side. But Jonathan India for Brady Singer, huge trade here. And, I mean, the Reds were looking to move India for so long now. They were talking about it at the deadline. They were talking about it at the deadline. They were talking about it in the offseason last year, right, Anthony?
Yeah.
I remember we're talking about this on the show for so long. They've been wanting to move this guy for so long. If I'm India right now, my goodness, all I have to say is like finally, because you have to feel so unwanted when they're like, we're trying to trade you, we're trying to trade you, we're trying to trade you. And they never do it. They just, like, my goodness. I think this is a pretty good deal, though. At least for the Reds, Brady Singer has a lot of upside in my eyes. He has had some trouble on the road, but he's looked very solid at it when needed. And he looks like he could be a very good starter for years to come. I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that the Royals did this trade, to be honest. I think you could have gotten Jonathan India for a little bit less than Brady Singer. I mean, I'm with you. I like Brady Singer. He's not some ace, obviously, but he's a guy that has had success in the past, and he's not that old. He's still below 30. And I feel like Jonathan India, ever since his Rookie of the Year season, has been average at best, and the Rookie of the Year season was 3 years ago now. I feel like you probably could have given up maybe a middling-level prospect or average hitter. I wouldn't have wanted to give up pitching, put it that way. The Royals' rotation is, granted, it's good. I mean, I like Cole Riggins and Seth Lugo to start it. I don't know how much faith I would have in Michael Wacha necessarily, coming off of a good year, but still I'm getting towards the wrong side of 30. And, bottom half of that rotation, not that great. I would have wanted to keep Brady Singer if I was the Royals, but it's not a terrible move. I just feel like you could have given up a little bit less.
And, Sebastian, what do you really think? I will say this. The second base position for the Royals, that kind of makes sense. I agree with you, Anthony. Brady Singer is a lot for India, who just won Rookie of the Year. And for the Reds side, I mean, they're getting more starting pitching, which is really cool that they're getting that. But, I mean, if Nick Lodolo comes back healthy next year, in my eyes, I really do like him. He's got a lot of upside to him. Hunter Green put together a really good season this year. And, I mean, after that, the rest of the rotation's a little shaky. But adding Brady Singer to that and not going for any batting whatsoever, I mean, the Royals were a team that had really good bats. And they just said, you want to know what we want pitching instead. I mean, Sebastian, what do you think?
I agree. I think that the Royals had other options out there. Listen, I'm a fan of Brady Singer. I've seen him pitch multiple times against the Yankees. I remember one time, specifically, he was pitching a Judge, threw a 92-mile-per-hour slider. I was like, whoa, that's pretty filthy. He has the stuff. I understand the Reds' perspective. You want to pair him with a guy such as Hunter Green. But, again, I think if I'm Jonathan India, I'm filled with joy right now. I think he needed a change of scenery, and the Royals, they wanted to pair him, tandem with Bobby Witt Jr. I think they'll be the future of the middle infield for the Royals for years to come. And, again, Hunter Green, he's the ace of the Reds. He's going to be the guy, 98-mile-per-hour fastball, disgusting. He's seen him throw 92-mile-per-hour sliders, disgusting. But, again, if I were the Reds, I would have gone out maybe – get that big run, go all in, get that Corbin Burns, get that anybody just to pair with Hunter Green to really shore up that rotation.
It is a very young rotation too.
It is.
That's a big part too. But yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes, and I like the Corbin Burns idea. But a lot more to talk about here. Who do you really think? Let's say a year from now we're talking about this trade. Who do you think is going to be winning the trade?
I think the Reds. I think another thing to point out is that Jonathan India, like, he was Rookie of the Year 3 years ago, but it's not like he's 24, 25 years old. He's already 27 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He came up as an older rookie at 24 back in 2021, and if he's ever going to figure it out, it's got to be relatively soon, because if you're dealing with a guy, say, a couple years from now, 29, 30 years old, and he's still hitting 250 every year, not looking like he was back in 2021, he's really going to have no value. And you're looking back and you're giving up a solid arm, which solid arms are hard to come by. We're going to go into Yusei Kikuchi, who got a bag for having a good season, yeah, but is about as good as Brady Singer and got a big contract. So it's not so easy to find a guy that could go out there and give you a 3.5, 4 ERA every year and be consistent. And you just gave one up for a guy that had one really good season, and the past 2-3 seasons have been average. So I don't know. Anything could change. 27 isn't old, but I really think you could have given up way less for this. I don't understand what the negotiations were for this deal. How do you say, okay, I want Jonathan India, you're going to go at Brady Singer? If this was 2022 or 3, maybe. 2024, he's had another season of being mediocre. Could have given up way less.
I agree. And then another big, which I mean might not be big to some average or to just baseball fans in general, but I thought this was pretty big because Eli Morgan is going to the Chicago Cubs, and I don't really think that's the big thing. I mean, they traded Alfonso Rosario, who I've never heard of whatsoever. He's an outfield prospect for the Cubs. And they're trading for Eli Morgan. He's a right-hander reliever. I think it makes sense there. But the Cubs DFA'd Patrick Wisdom, who a couple of years ago, I think like maybe 2 years ago, was like the bright spot on this team. Him and Frank Schwindwell. Remember Frank?
Yeah.
Frank Schwindwell, him. I don't know. I find it interesting. Very, very interesting. Well, moving along, because there is a lot to talk about in very little time. Awards came out. I feel like they're no surprise whatsoever, at least in my eyes. But Anthony, Sebastian, I'd really love to hear it from you guys. Let's start off with Cy Youngs. That sound good, Anthony?
Sounds good.
Fabulous. Well, Cy Youngs in the AL. First of all, I'm pretty sure both were unanimous.
I think so, yeah.
Both were unanimous. Both MVPs were unanimous. We have not seen this in a very, very long time, if ever. And the NL Cy Young winner is Chris Sale. Makes a lot of sense. He won the Triple Crown. He was an exciting, really, really exciting player this year who also won the Comeback Player of the Year. I have heard him say in the past, because he signed this small contract, or he got traded, signed a small contract with the Braves, blah, 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 blah. He has come out and said before, like, I feel really bad for my time with the Red Sox because I was just never good. In his time with the Red Sox, he was on the Red Sox from 2017 to 2023. He pitched a total of it's not showing me. But he only pitched a couple games. He pitched in that back end, especially the back end, in the last 3 years of his contract, he pitched 11 games. 11 games for the Red Sox. 9 in 21, 2 in 22. Did not play in 20 due to injury. He pitched 25 in the year prior to that. But his one really good year with the Sox was his first year back in 2017 when he threw 214 innings, 308 strikeouts, an ERA of 2.90, and then the year after he would have 2.11. But it's the 214 innings for me. I mean, he pitched incredibly that year. He led the league in innings pitched. Now, of course, Injuries kind of derailed his career. But at 35 years old, he wins the Cy Young with 18 wins, a 2.38 ERA, 177 innings pitched, 225 strikeouts, which led the league. I mean, such an amazing season for him.
It's a great comeback story for sure. I mean, as you were talking about his stats, I looked it up. From 2020 to 2022, 11 starts. So that tells you pretty much all you need to know. And he was, in 2022, 33 years old. So his best days seem to be behind him. And I still think his best days probably are behind him. I don't see 2025 being anything like 2024. I think he'll have a solid year, but nowhere near Cy Young level. But yeah, he 100% deserved this. I wonder if he didn't have those back spasms at the end of the year, would the Braves have gone a little bit further? I don't think they would have gone to the championship series. Maybe they would have gone to the division series, won that wild card series. I don't know. But that was a big loss for them. People kind of forget about that because of how great the year that he had. But, yeah, I don't – if eventually the age kind of caught up to him, if I'm a Braves fan, though, it's got to be tough. Like, if he would have just stayed healthy another few weeks, maybe you went a little further. I don't know.
I think so, too. So the official votings was the top three were Chris Sale, Zach Wheeler, and Paul Skeens. Chris Sale got 26 out of the 30 first-place votes. The other 4 went to Zach Wheeler, which, I mean, I guess I can understand a little bit. Take Philly bias out of it entirely. He just pitched more innings than him.
Yeah.
But dominance-wise, you got to give it to Sale. I mean, he was electric. You really can't beat that whatsoever. And then Paul Skeens came in third. He had 1 second-place vote and 13 third-place votes. And then behind him, Dylan Cease and Shota Imanaga. Imanaga had a really good season, too. I mean, at the start of the year, he was like 8-0.
Yeah,
he kept winning.
And nobody talked about him, yeah.
Nobody talked about him. Then, moving over to the AL side. Folks, this was a complete sweep. With 30 first-place votes, the winner, Tariq Skubal of the Detroit Tigers. Folks, that is what you like to see. A guy that hopefully, finally, will be giving this Tigers team something to cheer about. He's been in the league since 2020. But this was like his first big season besides 21 when he pitched 29 games. He pitched 31 games this year with a 6.3 WAR, 18 wins, which matched Chris Sale, a 2.39 ERA with 228 strikeouts. Both of them led their leagues in every category. So AL, Skubal won the Triple Crown, NL, Chris Sale won the Triple Crown. I think it's deserving. Behind him was Seth Lugo. Behind him was Class A, Cole Reagans, and then Corbin Burns. What did you guys think about this voting?
I 100% agree. Especially 192 innings is kind of rare. You see a pitcher get around 200 innings now. Great year for him. And you bring up a good point. A lot of people forget he's been in the big league since 2020. I think people kind of tend to think of him as like a really young player. I mean, he's young, sure, but he's been in the league a while now, and he struggled. 2021, above 4 ERA in 29 starts. This is a really good comeback story. Not as good of a comeback story as Chris Sale, obviously, but still a good comeback story. A guy that I think people kind of wrote off as another Tigers bust turned into a Cy Young Award winner, and someone that's going to be really big for them to go deeper into the playoffs and kind of get this stink that the Tigers have had off of them these past few years. You think about how bad the Tigers were even when we started the show back in 2022 and where they are now. It takes a lot of work to get a team back to relevance. Skubal's been a big part of that for sure.
I agree. I mean, he brought so much energy to this team, and they needed it. They needed it more than a lot of things. I mean, Sebastian, what about yourself?
Absolutely, and the great thing to see is the improvement every single year from Skubal. As Anthony said, he's been in the league since 2020. Every single year up until now, his ERA has improved. In 2020, he started off with a 5.63 ERA, and here we are, 2024, Cy Young winner, 2.39. He's always had the stuff. Broke multiple records at Seattle University, strikeouts, inning pitched. He's always had 98-mile-per-hour stuff, 86-mile-per-hour slider. But with most pitchers, you got to be able to locate, and he's learned that throughout his career in the Tigers as a young team. Now they have this guy to center around for years to come, and he's going to be the backbone of that starting rotation that's going to lead the Tigers to success and ultimately provide stability in a starting rotation that hasn't had much of that since 2013 when the Tigers were in the American League Championship.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, have we seen this good of a rotation from Detroit since 2013?
No.
Absolutely not.
Ever since Verlander and Scherzer, no.
I mean, I can't believe they made the playoffs, and they did that amazingly. Now, of course, moving over to our Rookie of the Years. This one was exciting to me because I wanted him to win. Anthony, I know you wanted somebody else to win. But for Rookie of the Year, starting off in the NL, Paul Skeens takes home the award. He was not excited about it. Did you see the video of that? My goodness. He wanted nothing to do with it. Livy Dunn looked like she looked like she was pitching in the World Series. Like, my goodness. She looked like she was throwing 100 miles per hour all season. He just looked like he was a bystander. It was ridiculous. Paul Skeens takes home the first place vote in the Rookie of the Year contest. Jackson Merrill comes in second. And here's what I think was interesting. 23 first place votes for Skeens, 7 for Merrill. We talked about it. I mean, Merrill had such a great season to only get 7 first place votes. That's kind of crazy in my eyes. I thought it was going to be a little bit more of a split. And then behind him, Jackson Churio, and behind him, once again, Shoto Imanaga. Churio looked like the front runner at like those first couple months of the year.
Yeah.
And we were talking about Langford in the AL. He wasn't even in the conversation. I mean,
Shows you how much things could change.
It really does. Skeens comes up, and he got drafted last year, and he wins the Rookie of the Year this year. Kind of insane. He's like one of a handful of players that who got votes for both Rookie of the Year and Cy Young in the same year. So very, very cool. Very cool stuff for him. Anthony, I imagine you have some stuff to say about this one. What did you think about these two picks? Or this pick?
As the Rookie of the Year?
As the Rookie of the Year.
I'm fine with it. I mean, he had a great season. I would have liked to see him play a little bit more. I mean, 23 starts, solid. I'm just not 100% sure if it's totally fair to Jackson Merrill. If you want to have Skeens win, okay. But you brought up the only 7 first-place votes for Merrill. I feel like he's kind of got pushed under the rug a little bit. People forget how good of a year Jackson Merrill had. And the guy played 156 games, essentially the whole season, and put up great numbers. So, I don't know. I think Merrill's going to have plenty of time to get awards. I'm not crying for him, certainly. He'll be fine. But I think he should have gotten a little bit more love from the voters than just 7 first-place votes. I think too many of the voters got it stuck in their head that it's got to be Skeens, it's got to be Skeens. Skeens still could have won. Merrill could have got a little bit more recognition.
That's what I think too. I think Skeens is the winner in my book, but I don't think it should have been this clear cut of a winner. Sebastian, what about yourself?
I agree. I think Skeens deserved it. He was awesome. Just every single game, just watching. I tune into the CBS Sports app on my phone. Again, 6 innings pitched, 7 strikeouts, 8 strikeouts, 9 strikeouts. He was the guy, came up, complete dominance, throwing 101 mile per hour fastballs, 92 mile per hour changeups. He's ridiculous. He was the starter for the National League in the All-Star game, dominated there, got both Judge and Soto out. But I agree with the point of Jackson Merrill deserving more recognition. In a league where home runs and strikeouts are more common for players, Merrill was different. He hit the home runs, but he didn't strike out a lot. Hit 292 with 24 home runs, 90 RBIs, and he showed a little speed on the base. He's 16 stolen bases. He was great on a Padres team that needed that to pair up with Luis Arraez, Tatis, and they're going to be good for years to come. But I agree, Skeens deserved it. He was the definition of dominance. But again, yes, I think that Jackson Merrill deserved a little more recognition just due to how well he played and the dominance he showed in all aspects of his game, hitting, fielding, and defense.
I really think that Merrill, just in the future, he's going to be set. He's got such a good team around him. And honestly, right now, if I'm Fernando Tatis, you have to be happy. You have to be so happy. I mean, you start off on this team, and you're the lone star. Then they bring in Machado. Still, I mean, you bring in Soto, too. Soto doesn't really work out. Machado has an MVP run at, what was that, 2023?
Yeah.
And then come this year, it just didn't look like it was going to happen. They bring in Arraez, and then they bring up Jackson Merrill, and things start to turn around a little bit. And now you have a fading Manny Machado, which is fine. That's going to happen. You have Dylan Cease now as a starter, Luis Arraez at the second base position, Tatis in the outfield, Merrill in the outfield. This team is really set, and I mean, they were the hottest team in baseball at the end of the year. That's just what it was. They were the hottest team. I'm interested to see if they make any moves this offseason. But right now, for Merrill, this is a good set. As for Skeens, I mean, they need to build around him. He's not kind of going into a team that's already built from the beginning. If you're why am I losing my spot? If you're Jackson Churio, if you're Jackson Merrill, listen, the benefit to you is you're coming up in this team that's really good already. You don't really need to claw your way, and you don't need the team to build around you, or, you don't need to be worrying about trade talk because, you're a perennial talent. But for Paul Skeens, I'm not saying he's going to worry about trade talk, but Brian Reynolds is on that team, still could be in trade talk. It's got to be a little bit scary if you're Paul Skeens, because you don't know what they're going to do. This isn't a team that spends that much money, and I think now, hey, you have Paul Skeens, please start spending some money, because Pittsburgh is fun when it's booming. On the AL side, Luis Gil takes home the award. He beats out his teammate Austin Wells and Colton Cowser for it, and my goodness, this one was the closest. Colton Cowser had 13 first-place votes, while Gil had 15. Gil ended with 106 votes. Cowser ended with 101. Miller and Cade Smith. Did we talk about Cade Smith at all this year?
I don't think we did. No.
We did not talk about Cade Smith once this year. They also got first-place votes. Cade Smith got a first-place vote. That's interesting.
Yes.
Anthony, what do you think about this?
As terms of the first place and second place, yeah, all I wanted to see was Colton Cowser get some recognition. I kind of had him as my dark horse candidate to win the Rookie of the Year. It was close. It was within a couple votes, but at least in this voting, he got the recognition that he deserved. He had just as good of a season as Jackson Merrill did, and Jackson Merrill didn't get nearly as many votes. So at least with the AL voting, I think it's mainly because Gil's not as much of a clear-cut winner of the Rookie of the Year as Skeens was. But still, at least Colton Cowser got more votes than Merrill.
Yeah, and Cade Smith, just looked up his stats. He had a little under a 2 ERA, pitched in 74 games. He was a reliever for the Cleveland Guardians, 103 strikeouts for him. But, Sebastian, what about yourself? Do you think, you're a Yankees fan. Did Gil deserve this one? I think he did. But what about you?
He did deserve it. I think that he was overshadowed a little bit by the inconsistency that he showed towards the end of the season, but he was a very dominant pitcher at the beginning from April towards June. And even though he had the inconsistency, he was still able to show some resilience, get out of some big situations, use that life on his fastball, which he would run up to 100 mile per hour, paired with that 91 mile per hour slider. I think that he did well for, 15-7 record, 3.5 ERA, 171 strikeouts. I think he showed a lot of pride in himself, pitching well. He started a playoff game for the Yankees, showed some resilience against the Guardians in the American League Championship Series. But I also like that Colton Cowser gained some recognition. Overshadowed in a team with Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman. He was a story. He was a good story. He played well defensively in right field, hit over 20 home runs. Batting average wasn't bad at all, 240 batting average, and I think that trio of Henderson, Rutschman, and Cowser for years to come will play dividends for the Orioles. But the way that Gil, he didn't have a total collapse. He still pitched somewhat well towards the end of the season. I think that compared with that dominance towards the first half of the season warranted that winning spot.
I like it. And finally, our MVP vote. Folks, we have only a couple more minutes on this show. But MVP, Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani, to nobody's dismay, take home both MVP awards unanimously. Both of them got 30 first-place votes. Ridiculous. My goodness. And Judge joins Mickey Mantle in 1956 as the only Yankee to be a unanimous MVP. And for Shohei, well, what more can you say? It's his third MVP. If he's healthy, it feels like he's going to win it every year. I don't see it stopping anytime soon. My goodness.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to come at it from the Met fan perspective. Obviously, I wanted Lindor to win. Ohtani was the better player this year, but who was more valuable to their team? I would argue Lindor, just because of the defense in addition to the offense. I think there should be a separate best player award versus most valuable. It comes down to how you define valuable. I say valuable is what addition are you to your team? And Lindor, take Lindor away from the Mets, they're nowhere near as good as they were. You take Ohtani away from the Dodgers, maybe they don't win the World Series. They're still a playoff team. They probably still make a deep playoff run. That's a big difference to me. So the way Lindor carried the Mets, I'm not saying he should have definitely won it, but I think he should have received some first place votes. And I think that the MVP award as a whole should be defined a little bit differently. It should be how valuable are you to your team as opposed to are you the best player, if that makes sense.
I understand that. Sebastian, what about yourself?
I think that from Shohei Ohtani's perspective, he deserved it. That was a season that was unmatched. I mean, come on, 310 average, 54 home runs, 130 RBIs, and 59 stolen bases. Even though he couldn't play the field and he was just a designated hitter for the season, he showed an unbelievable amount of a resurgence on a Dodgers team where he felt like he was wanted. He didn't have any... I mean, he had success as an individual with the Angels, but no playoff success. I think that this motivation to come to the Dodgers, this contract that he was warranted, he just played unbelievably well in the leadoff spot, set the table for guys such as Freddie Freeman behind him, and he deserved it. He was an unbelievable acquisition. I think that those 130 RBIs, bringing guys in with scoring position, proves that he's valuable. And I do agree, Lindor was awesome for the Mets. He was very good. Saw him make a play in the division series against the Phillies. Diving play with his backhand to his right. Unbelievable. He's going to be the future of the Mets for years to come. But I think that the season that Ohtani had and just the straight dominance from it, without even the pitching part of it, warranted that award. He was unbelievable.
All right. Well, I will say I think they both deserved it. And Anthony and I can go back and forth on this constantly. But we are ending our show, sadly. A shorter show today. When we come back, next week, we'll be talking a lot more in depth about these awards. And for those who celebrate, we hope that you are as excited for Thanksgiving as we are, and that you are thankful for the walk-off, because we're thankful for our listeners. We're always thankful for our listeners. Now, before we do go, next week we'll be bringing out some more fun games. Sebastian, will you be with us next week?
I'll be here, yep.
Fabulous. We'll get Sebastian for 4 weeks in a row. Fabulous. Wonderful. Maybe we'll try to get some other guests on here, and we'll be talking a lot about baseball, because my goodness, do I miss it. I've been getting, TikTok reels constantly about it, and I miss that sport more than you can believe. But as for right now, you're listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. We thank you for joining us here on the Walkoff.